You're listening to the Be PowerFULL Podcast. This is episode number 5, and today we are talking all about hormones. I'm pretty excited about this because this is what I talk about on a day-to-day basis when I am working with my metabolic reset clients who work with me on a one-on-one or a group basis. And this was actually the most requested episode topic that when I asked out on Facebook and Instagram, hey, I'm starting a podcast. What do you want to hear from me? Everybody said hormonal balance. So in this episode, we are going to break down what hormonal balance is all about, why you should care, and how you can begin doing it in your life. I'm going to make this super actionable, and there are also going to be some resources provided. So what you'll want to do to check out the show notes is go to jessicaorr.com/podcast and scroll on down to episode number 5. And from there, you will get links to all of the resources that I'm going to mention here in this episode. Okay, let's dive in. This is the Be PowerFULL Podcast, where we're focused on stepping into our power and living the full lives we were meant to live. Hey, I'm your host, Jess, and I want to inspire you to cultivate self-trust and confidence so that you begin taking action within your life. If you're like me and self-growth is your religion, this is going to be the place for you to share in real, honest conversations around how to make the shifts you've been dreaming about. I'm a mom, business owner, and strength and hormone coach, and I work with women each and every day who aspire to embody the strength to step out of their old narratives and into new realities. Here in this show, we're going to cover things like fat loss nutrition, strength training, hormone balance, mom life, business, positive mindset, and other topics that will guide you to living your most powerful life. Are you ready, mama? Let's jump in. Hey everyone, so excited to be back for episode number 5. Thanks so much for listening in. I really appreciate you all being here from the start. I have upgraded from talking to you underneath my comforter sitting on top of my bed to a pretty cool little sound system here, where I've got a little bit of flexibility where I can podcast around my house because I do like to change things up and change the location. And my husband's working from home, I can change where I'm going. So pretty cool that I have this set up. Thanks for being here from the start because it was a little funny just watching myself set up in closets and going in my kid's closet and trying to record amongst my husband's shoes. So I think we feel legit at this point. Okay, so let's launch into hormones. So hormone balance is a pretty hot topic in the health and wellness industry. And honestly, I have to check myself every once in a while because as a hormone coach, I am following a lot of influencers and professionals and experts in hormonal health. And I think it's so everywhere. But I also, when I'm talking to women in specifically my free consult calls, where we're talking about if my services are a fit for individuals, and when I'm talking to women, sometimes hormonal balance isn't even on their radar. So I think it's a hot topic. It might not be for you, but really what professionals and trainers and wellness professionals are talking about more and more is the fact that limiting calories and just not eating a lot of food and over exercising does have some repercussions. So there is a downside to pushing so hard against our body. And most of the time, the downside is hormonal dysfunction, all sorts of thyroid issues, adrenal stress. We're not going to get into all of that today. Just overtraining, getting injured. There are a lot of downsides to pushing against our body and pushing against our metabolism. And so if your goal is to gain strength, if your goal is to lose weight, you really want to be aware of how balanced your body is in the process. But as a consumer, I have to be honest with you that before I knew much about hormonal health, I was like, what the heck does this even mean? Like I heard people talking about it and I'm like, the hell does balance wasn't really my thing. Like if you know me, I've always been kind of like a very disciplined person. I love to dig in. I love to take on a challenge. So my MO was never to be balanced. It was always to be like, we're all in this. And I'm going to tell you some stories today in this episode about young Jess and then about crisis Jess. And you're probably going to see yourself in both of my stories because we grow up wanting to lose weight, and that's a whole other topic, actually. I can't really go into this topic around fat loss without saying fat loss does not need to be your goal. So, a little aside here, we are talking about weight loss and fat loss in this episode, and I'm going to make the assumption that that is one of your goals. But it does not need to be one of your goals. And it's interesting because I am a fat loss coach, but I do not prioritize fat loss as much as I used to in my coaching practice. I am also a strength coach, and I use biofeedback and awareness over self in both of these methods of losing fat and gaining strength. But I also just want you to know that you do not need to have fat loss be one of your goals. In fact, if you work on strength, sometimes fat loss comes along for the ride. But I need you to know that fat loss, you do not need to be a certain size to be worthy. You literally can live inside your current body right now and be worthy of everything that you would be if you were down 20, 30 pounds, whatever it is. I know that when I talk to women in my consult calls that a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, weight loss is the goal. And I also want you to know that if weight loss is one of your goals, you have every right to have that be one of your goals. I hope that it's coming from a place of love and respect and compassion for yourself and not out of shame and fear. That is always my goal, that when we're working towards something, we're working towards it with a positive mindset without shame involved. But if your goal is to change your body and to change your aesthetic, that's also okay too. So I just want to put that out there first. Okay, so when we talk about hormones, I'm going to go through and I'm going to talk about it through the lens of diet psychology. Mostly because what you need to know is that dieting with zero regard to your hormonal biochemistry is like, this is my example. It's like getting a flat tire and then driving around on it, like driving around on your rim. You might get to your destination, but you're going to struggle a bit more than you need to, and it may take a lot longer or do more damage to your car than you need to in order to get to your destination. I want to go a step further with this analogy and say that the typical dieter keeps trying on new tires, like keeps trying all the latest and greatest new tires, but they always go down the same roads. Roads maybe their best friend went down or their sister went down, and they go down the same roads littered with nails and booby traps. And just because someone said that they should. And then they continue to pop their tires because it's almost like they're expecting for each new tire to be like the perfect solution for their car. They're never going to pop their tire again, but they keep doing the same sort of thing, right? So again, what I'm talking about here is doing diets with zero regard to your hormonal balance. If you're thinking, oh, I don't need that, you're totally like, that's how I used to think. So I totally get it. So I'm talking about two things here. The fact that you can get results in the short term with really any type of plan. You can get results. It's just like driving on the flat tire. You can get to your destination, but it might not be the best long-term solution for you, right? But also, if you're looking for that perfect tire, you're looking for that perfect way of eating that's going to be for you forever. But we can't know what roads we're going to drive down, right? We can't know what's going to happen in our lives and in our bodies. And if we have no ability to look at the road and see where the hazards are and no awareness over our body, then we don't know how to be flexible. And so flexibility is probably sustainability, and flexibility are probably one of the two reasons why I think hormonal balance is super important. So it's likely if you're listening to this podcast today on hormonal balance that you have been on a weight loss plan. Maybe you're on one right now. Maybe you've been on many in your life like I have. I want to challenge the plan or the plans that you've been on. And I have an acronym called PLAN. And when I'm explaining hormonal balance to individuals, I talk about the fact that most of the ways that we look to achieve change in our health are pretty damn restrictive. They are hard to maintain in the long term. They are psychologically really hard on us. They rely on willpower. And also they have zero ability to teach us any real tools that we have for our toolbox, so that when factors change, when we go through menopause, or when we go through stressful times in our lives, when we have kids, when factors change, like they will for me in my two stories I'm going to talk to you about, we have the ability to kind of be flexible and to be aware of what needs to happen next in order for us to maintain our results or even get results in the first place. And so think about your plan for a second, and I want to bring you through my acronym, also called PLAN. Hopefully that's not too confusing. But PLAN stands for psychology, longevity, awareness, and necessary results. And so let's talk about and think about the plans that you've been on. So specifically, you might have been on a ketogenic diet. You might have switched to eating paleo a year ago. You may have tried the South Beach diet. You may have tried to completely eliminate carbohydrates. You may have tried a combo plan between nutrition and exercise. And I want you to think about your plan in particular and look at the first piece, which is psychology. So if psychologically your plan has been really challenging to stay on because it feels super restrictive and it doesn't fit with your life, so it's like there's a lot of mental warfare going on in your head where you're like waking up every day and you're like, why the hell do I need to be on this thing? You kind of live in this scarcity mindset where it's like everyone else can go around enjoying their day, eating whatever the hell they want, and why am I on this plan? I need to make sure that there are certain foods around. I need to make sure that there are certain things that I can eat because I feel like I have to control everything. Like if you're feeling super restricted and psychologically that you're just battling your willpower on your plan, it's likely not going to be a long-term plan for you. So it might be the typical yo-yo diet plan where you're all in and then all off. Let's move to longevity. So that kind of transition us into the fact that if you can't look at the way that you're eating and the way that you're living in order to try and reach your goals and say that you can do it for a pretty damn long time, then I would really question how intense that plan is. Psychologically, this is a really big piece. If we're relying on willpower is finite. Motivation is finite. We're not always feeling like we want to do the things that we know we should do in order to get results. And so if there's no built-in awareness plan where we don't actually know how to tweak things to keep ourselves motivated, how to keep ourselves satisfied, how to not make it be this total high willpower plan, then it's going to be really challenging for us. And longevity wise, it's going to be a short-term thing. Anyone can diet for 2 weeks, right? But if we have been trying this for 2 weeks, trying that for 2 weeks, trying the next thing for 2 weeks, it's a really that's a really big sign that the plans that you're trying are not the right plans for you. And that maybe a hormonally balanced plan is going to be something that makes more sense. So the next thing is awareness. And this is really big. This takes you from a yo-yo dieter who is all about following rules and you just want someone to give you a food list. You want someone to tell you exactly how to shop, exactly what to buy, exactly what to make in the kitchen, exactly how much to eat. You want the plan and you want to execute it perfectly according to somebody else's ideals. What you really need to think about is if your plan has zero ability for you to customize based on your lifestyle, based on your preferences, based on your psychology, it's not going to be something that you can maintain. Think about it this way. If I were to, and by the way, I used to do this several years ago when I first started coaching, I thought that the main thing that my clients needed from me was a food list organized by category of the store. I told them how much to pick up and put in their cart. I told them exactly the recipes that they should be making. I told them the times of day they should be eating. And needless to say, it wasn't something that was, I was actually doing my clients a disservice. I thought I was giving them all the tools that they needed to be successful, but I actually wasn't allowing them to become thinkers and to think for themselves. And I actually think that that's probably the biggest part of my coaching method now is helping my clients think for themselves. And if prepping their food on the weekend is just nothing that is good for them psychologically. I don't know why I'm struggling with that word. Psychologically, if taking a few hours on Sunday and prepping is torture to them, don't do it, right? Live on the whim and make a rando bowl and automate your nutrition so you're eating the same thing every day. You take out the decision fatigue, but you don't have to pre-prep for 10 hours. All power to you. Go do that. If you're not able to customize your plan and make it something that works for you, and you don't have awareness over your body's reaction to what you're doing, it's very likely that your plan is not going to be, you're not going to be balanced psychologically in this plan, but you're also not going to be able to maintain this for any length of time. Okay, the last thing is, and this should be obvious, but sometimes we overlook it. Are you getting the necessary results for that plan to be worthwhile for you? Like, are you feeling better? Are you losing weight? Are you feeling better energy-wise? Are you able to maintain balance with your hunger and your cravings? Is it something that you can live day in and day out for a while? And is it getting the results that you're looking for? If you are struggling through on plans that don't meet your goals, I mean, it's likely that you're going to notice that pretty quickly and you're going to move on anyway. But sometimes we do things for a really long time, even though they're not working for us. And we don't allow ourselves the time to think it through, to see how we might be able to tweak it to make it something that is successful for us. And so the reason why I wanted to go through this acronym is because oftentimes when I tell people that I'm a hormonal fat loss coach and I'm at like a kid's birthday party or just I'm around at social events and people find out what I do, they always like to run their plan by me and be like, ooh, hey, all right, so you're a health coach. I'm doing keto right now. My wife and I are doing keto, and I really want to know, do you think we should do that? And I'm like, well, maybe. I mean, every type of diet works. There are so many different types of diets. I'm not dogmatic in my thinking. I don't think that my way is the only way. My way is a great way because it actually is customized to every individual, but it holds true the big rocks to the fat loss, the necessary components of fat loss. But some people really enjoy doing something like the ketogenic plan or intermittent fasting or living a strict paleo lifestyle. So you can do whatever you want. And if you're getting the results, cool. If you're getting the results and they're not something that you can maintain, okay, that's something to look at, right? So I like to walk people through, like, I don't know. I don't go into this, like, I'm not like, I have an acronym for you. But I do like to say, like, you know what? It all depends on your psychology. It all depends on if you're able to maintain that. It all depends on if you're learning things about how to listen to your body. It all depends on if you're getting the results that you're looking for. And if you are, cool. Awesome. Then you have the answers that you need. I do not think that there's one way to do things. And in fact, there's like a million ways to train your body and to gain strength. You can crawl around like an animal and do like more of like mobility type of plan. You could lift and use kettlebells, and you could learn and hone skills with kettlebells. You can only use barbells, and you can power lift, and you can try and just like increase the weight on the bar. You can use dumbbells and do more dynamic full body moves. I mean, there's so many different ways to do it. You could do HIIT, you could do spin, you could do all sorts of things. I don't think that there's only one way to get to your results. We also have to think about who we are as individuals and what we enjoy doing. If you enjoy being on a keto diet and making sure that your body is always in a ketogenic state, amazing. That is so awesome. If you rather more of a live in the middle type of approach, where you can toggle between attain and maintain fat loss phases, then my style might be better for you. But you just have to think about the fact that it has to be something that you can maintain, has to be something that your mindset can be balanced on, has to be something that you are learning about your body, and that gets you the results that you need. Okay, let's move on. So I thought we would do like a teeny bit of a crash course on metabolism and on hormones. And we're not going to get super into science because I don't actually think that's hugely important to be able to start managing hormones and making sure that you are losing fat instead of losing weight, and that you're doing something that is going to be successful for you in the long term. So when we talk about metabolism, we are referring to basically transformation. That's what metabolism is really all about. It's the body doing its job to keep us alive and to do all of the necessary functions, right? That's what metabolism is all about. And there are a couple things that happens. There are a couple metabolic pathways, right? Our metabolism can build up in an anabolic state, or our metabolism can break down in a catabolic state. So in the process of building up, we're often using energy. In the process of breaking down, we are often producing energy. So most people think about metabolism as a speed, right? It's people talk about I have a really slow metabolism or ineffective metabolism, or she has a really fast metabolism, and we often put it in a bucket of whether we can lose weight or not. Like that's what we only apply it to. Things that affect our metabolism rate, the rate actually at which we burn energy, are lean muscle mass and lifestyle factors like getting enough sleep, doing the right type of exercise, fueling with the right foods. Our metabolic rate is largely affected by hormone balance, actually, or imbalance. For example, when we have lack of sleep, which is super common with the women I work with, it's been shown to increase ghrelin, which is the hormone that is produced in the stomach that influences and sends the message to the brain to look for food. So ghrelin increases our hunger. So when we are sleepless and we have low levels of sleep, high levels of cortisol and stress, because of that, we also have higher levels of ghrelin and we're hungrier. Do you ever notice that? That when you don't get a lot of sleep, you're craving like crazy the next day and you have all sorts of hunger? These are hormonal things. Lack of sleep can also decrease the fullness hormone, which is called leptin, and it tells the brain that there's enough fuel on board and the hunger can shut off. So if it decreases our fullness hormone, if the lack of sleep decreases our fullness hormone, it tells the brain that we need to keep looking for food, right? So can you see how our metabolism and our hormonal balance affects how much we are going to want to put in our face, right? So let's talk about hormones for a second. Hormone imbalances occur when there's too much or too little of a hormone in the bloodstream. Hormones are actually chemicals that are produced within the glands of the endocrine system, and they travel throughout the blood to tissues and organs delivering message around the body. So hormones are basically our messengers all throughout the body that dictate what to do and when to do it. So they regulate bodily functions like metabolism, appetite, digestion, heart rate, sleep, stress, sexual function, our cycle, growth, mood, and focus. So hormones have a huge effect on our mental, physical, and emotional health. And so normally our endocrine system is actually really smart, right? It produces the precise amount of each hormone that is necessary for all of the processes in the body to happen, right? But what happens is we are living crazy lifestyles. We never shut off. And so hormonal imbalances have become more common. Some hormones increase with age or decrease with age. Some have more dramatic drops than others. But what's mostly true is that we can absolutely improve our hormonal balance in the way that we choose to live our lives. So in our lifestyle choices. Hormonal balance is actually the key deciding factor behind if our way of eating, dieting, is going to be something we can maintain and sustain in the long term. Whether we're successful in the first place. And what I love to talk about most is if we're feeling balanced in the process, mentally and physically. Okay, so I want to launch into a couple stories, one about young Jess and one about crisis Jess. And I just think that this is going to be really useful. It's always a tool that I use in my coaching practice that really helps women see themselves in the struggle and then in the solution. And so I want you to think about 20-year-old Jess who was always on a diet, first of all. I always felt like I needed to lose weight. I always felt like I needed to be skinny. I had a lot of self-worth wrapped up in my ability to maintain a certain body size. And so I'll tell you that most of the time I've been on diets ever since I was in high school, and that's not uncommon. I think we learn to go on diets. We learn that from society that the way that we should look is, we should have curves, we should be skinny, we shouldn't have extra fat. And so I was really always on a quest to be as thin as I could. And so what I would do in order to get the results that I was looking for, I was always interested in wellness and I was always interested in overall health, but I wouldn't say that, I certainly tried diet pills in the past, but my MO in my 20s to lose weight was to always go on restrictive diets. And that always worked for me. I remember saying to my husband, I will never get big because I know how to I know how to tell myself when it's time. And if you want a little bit of a translation, I shamed myself enough for feeling gross at the weight that I was at that I would always put myself into a deprivation mode so that I would lose weight. That's the translation. But I thought that that was virtuous. I thought that I was so disciplined. I thought that I knew exactly what needed to happen and I did it. And so if I wanted to lose weight, by the way, I probably went up and down with the same 20 or 25 pounds throughout my 20s. And I had so many sizes in my closet. I can't even tell you. Like I had from like a 2 to an 8 to a 10. So I had just like so many sizes and I would go up and down and up and down and up and down. But my MO when I wanted to lose weight was to limit my calories and do the typical dieter approach where I would over-exercise and I would undereat. So I lived usually a Monday through Thursday super clean eating program, and then Friday through Sunday I was exhausted. So I was eating and I was drinking and I was kind of off the rails and I felt like I was eating bad and I had all of these moral attributes to food where I thought if I'm eating good, I'm being virtuous, I'm so great. And then during the weekend, I'm so bad. There was so much shame. But you see how this cycle is perpetuated by the deprivation, right? That the longer we deprive ourselves, the more we deprive ourselves, the more perfect we believe that our eating has to be, the less aware we are over the quality of the foods and how food makes us feel and how our decisions are impacting our overall wellness, the more that we're going to be white knuckling to a certain point, and then we're going to go off. So if you find yourself, like a lot of the women I coach, saying that I'm either on or off, you use words like I'm being good or bad when you're referring to food. You only really have two speeds where you're totally on or totally off. You rely on dedication, you rely on willpower, you rely on restricting. You think that the only way for you to get results is by getting rules and following rules completely. You are like 20s Jess, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a process that I think is important for us to go through. But I'm in a stage of life where I am 38. I've had kids. I'm done having kids, most likely. And I'm at this point where I really need to have balance. I need to feel good. I have a business. I have kids to raise. I have a house to become a CEO of. Like I have a lot of responsibilities on me. And if I'm not balanced, things are hard. Things are really hard. So when I was in my 20s and I wanted to lose weight, I would lose it pretty quickly. Maybe I would string together a couple weeks of that deprivation type of plan, and I would tell myself that it was totally fine and that I wasn't actually craving pizza or alcohol. And it would depend on what I was getting ready for, right? Typically, it was a Monday through Thursday, clean eating, then Friday through Sunday binging. But I distinctly remember what it felt like on Sunday nights, and it wasn't good. It felt like stuffed. I was stuffed. There was no eating to 80% fullness with this type of Jess. Like when I was eating healthy, I was probably pretty starving after the meals. I was not satisfied. And then on the weekends, I was oversatisfied, overstuffed. Sunday night, I was not even hungry, but continuing to eat because I had to get in all of the foods that I know and I knew that I was going to have to restrict come Monday. It got to a point where willpower was so hard to dial back into that like Monday, I'd be like, I'd like starve myself Monday morning all the way through Monday evening. And then Monday evening, I would snack, that like continuous meal from dinner on. And so is that cycle something that we can maintain? No. I knew all the right things to do. I knew the right foods to eat. My metabolism was pretty darn flexible. So I'm pretty lucky that this pattern for me did not damage my metabolism. But I really do think that I had a lot of room to grow in the balanced, sustainable approach. Now, let me fast forward to the time in my life where this was no longer doable. So this is Crisis Jess, as I referred to earlier on in the episode. Crisis Jess was, I have to do the math on this. Hold on. I was 32 33. And I had Nathan, my second child. He was about 6 months old. So Benjamin was about, I don't know, 3 years old. Nathan was 6 months old. And I was working a pretty high demand job. I was working in advertising sales in radio for my whole career. And this was towards the end of that career. And I was going for a promotion. And I was working 2 jobs in the process. Had come back from maternity leave and I was catching up. And then I was going for a promotion when my boss was promoted to his next level up. And so I was pitching myself for the job. And I had a young child. And Nathan was like, he was the sweetest little baby, but he also had the biggest attitude that I ever saw on a little baby. And overnight, he was obsessed with nursing. And I couldn't, for the life of me, get him to increase the time between his feedings. He loved to nurse. And I did not like to, because I needed to actually survive and be a human during the day. And I did not survive well on no sleep. And so we were living in Boston at the time. We were living in a condo, and this is friggin' hilarious. So Benjamin was sleeping in the nursery in our second bedroom, and Nathan, we had started with him sleeping in our bedroom in a porta crib. And that was no longer working, because if you have breastfed and you had a kid as obsessed as Nathan was with breastfeeding, you know that if I was in the room with him, he was like, I smell you, I want you. And so I had to put him in the bathroom. So he was in the porta crib in our master bathroom, which felt so wrong, but there was enough room. He wasn't gonna, he was safe, but it still felt weird to put him in this tiny room. And then eventually we took him out of the bathroom and into our bedroom. And we wanted to keep him in the bedroom so that we had someplace to live after the kids went to sleep. So eventually Jeff and I just were like, we threw our hands up in the air and we were sleeping on the pull-out couch in our condo. And it wasn't really comfortable, just so you know. I don't know any pull-out couch that actually is. So we're sleeping on the pull-out couch. I'm trying to keep Nathan away from me, and he's screaming. So we ended up then we're moving on from trying to train him in breastfeeding to trying to sleep train him. And so he's screaming bloody murder in the middle of the night. My neighbor downstairs, it's like a Friends episode. He's banging his broom on the ceiling. What use is that? Thanks for letting us know that we are being loud. I really did want my 6-month-old screaming in the middle of the night. So thank you for cluing us in and letting us know that actually isn't something we should be doing at 3 a.m. Jerk. So Jeff would be banging on the floor. I would be crying. Nathan was crying. It was terrible, right? So can you tell already that this is crisis, Jess, right? So in my 20s, I didn't have kids, didn't have responsibilities, probably thought my life was stressful, but wasn't as stressful as it actually was once I had kids in this full-time demanding management job, right? And so I literally had zero willpower in me, zero mental power to be able to eat super clean like I used to. So the methods of, not to mention the fact that I had all sorts of hormonal changes during pregnancy and everything, my body had changed. So there are a lot of different factors going on. But I couldn't be as disciplined as I used to be, and discipline was something that I relied on. I relied on that huge sense of willpower that I would get when I was like, okay, I'm limiting carbohydrates, I'm only eating chicken and broccoli, I'm going really clean, going super clean. And so I would have a really hard time being like, you know what, I'm not going to get a grinder from the amazing sub shop down the road. I'm going to get a salad. And so sometimes my willpower just wasn't there. And my stress was being used for other things. I had high levels of stress. My sleep wasn't great. And that is a major factor of hormonal imbalance. And so I could not do it the same way that I used to do it. And I kept hearing about lose fat, lose weight, become hormonally balanced. And I was like, how do I do this? All right, how do I do this? And so at the same time as going on a more sustainable plan, I also started lifting weights. So instead of, I haven't really talked about the exercise part, and I'm not really going to focus on that here, but there is exercise, all sorts of input and lifestyle choices will impact our metabolism and our hormonal balance. And my chosen form of losing weight was to go for runs and go for lots of runs. So I would go on the treadmill. I became a triathlete. So I was doing a lot of aerobic exercise, and aerobic exercise tends to drive your hunger hormones up. So it increases your hunger hormones, it increases a little bit of cravings, and it is harder for you to maintain a low calorie diet. So that was also something that needed to change. Also, when I kind of like was doing research on the right type of plan for me at this point during crisis time, I recognized that I really didn't have all that much time to exercise. So I needed to make my exercise super efficient. And that meant increasing the amount of resistance that I was using. Like I wasn't going to go for just body weight runs. I was going to do things like squat presses. I was going to do renegade rows. I was going to do things that involved me using resistance with weights, but also did involved cardiovascular exercise. So I knew that I needed to do that in order to reduce the amount of time that I had to spend exercising. So I would get better results by exercising less, but actually making it more efficient. So I was doing that at the same time. But Crisis Jess just couldn't rely on willpower. I needed to do something that was more hormonally balanced. And so what I did was I did a ton of research and education, and I went through programs. I did Body for Life in particular. I did Metabolic Effect. I read every Metabolic Effect book, the New Me Diet, Lose Weight Here, and later became certified through Metabolic Effect to coach hormonal balance. And since then, I have been a major student of hormonal balance because it was the one thing that turned around my relationship with food and exercise. I recognized that what I did not need to do was beat myself up into a weight loss plan. I needed something that made me feel good throughout the process, and that not only made it more sustainable, but it actually helped me to lose fat and not to lose weight, because there is a difference between losing fat and losing weight overall. What we really want to do is positively impact our metabolism. We want to increase our lean muscle tissue. We want to be able to burn more while at rest. And we do that by building muscle. And we also feel better in our bodies when we have more stability in our joints and we have more muscle tone in our bodies. So at the same time as discovering hormonal balance, I was also discovering weightlifting. And as you know, if you follow me, I train as a power lifter. I coach powerlifting. I also coach metabolic resistance training in my gym. And all of my online programs involve short, intense exercise because it's what I believe in. I think that it helps to produce consistency with my clients. And I just think it's the best. As I've honed my coaching practice, I have really been doing a lot of research and thinking on which approach is most important. Is it calorie cutting or is it a hormones first approach? And what you need to know is that calorie cutting affects hormones, and it affects hormones negatively. And I see this in a lot of the women that come to me for help because they have for a long time limited calories, and in doing so felt like they were failures, because when you limit calories, what tends to happen is your metabolism, when you're pushing against your metabolism by limiting your calories, your body asks you to find more food, right? If you're doing a lot of cardio, if you're doing a low calorie approach, your body is going to compensate by asking you to find more food. And so what's going to happen? I just talked about the willpower approach, right? You're going to need a lot of willpower to maintain that because your body is pushing back against you. You want to work with your metabolism and with your hormones while at the same time losing fat. And so it's really important to know that the body slows its metabolic rate and sets into motion a host of all these compensatory reactions that make you hungry, that make you crave all these calorie-rich foods, all of these foods that are like comfort foods that take all of your energy out of your system and actually slow fat loss. So that's why if you have always done a calories only model to trying to lose fat or lose weight and you haven't been able to maintain that, or what used to work for you doesn't work for you. So if you might be like me, like the former Jess, that what I knew I needed to do, it wasn't that I couldn't get results with a calorie first model where I was limiting calories and trying to only think about calories. It was that required so much willpower from me that I couldn't do that. But if you think that you even have the willpower to maintain that sort of plan, what tends to happen is your metabolism itself changes. So psychologically, maybe you're not changing and the willpower is harder, but your metabolism changes. It down regulates and it makes you hungry. And the calorie first approach, it really leaves you at the mercy of your metabolism and you're completely reliant on willpower. Anyone who has gone on a diet knows it is literally nearly impossible to try and win the battle with unbalanced hormones in a weight loss setting. You need to balance your hormones. So I told you that I want you to walk away with really actionable and really easy things for you to start doing today so that you can begin to balance your hormones. First, I want to explain that the hormones first approach is super different than trying to limit your calories. It is all about learning your body and becoming someone who listens to her body, his or her body, and focus on how to balance your hunger, how to control your cravings, how to know the difference between the two, how to elevate your energy, how to increase your metabolism. And all of that is going to be an automatic reduction in calories. All of those things are going to limit your calories just by the nature of doing it. So I want you to know that you can still, and you need to, it is a scientific fact of fat loss that you need to be burning more calories than you take in. But I believe that the hormone first approach is the most important piece because what you're able to do is you're going to balance your biochemistry and you're going to not battle the wills that you always have. See, the binge restrict dieting thing, that is still a thing. And it's something that we all struggle with. I have had 4 years of really good practice of not struggling with that. And I am proud to say that through a lot of practice, you are able to really get off of that yo-yo diet roller coaster, but it takes a little bit of work. So when I talk about being a fat loss coach for women and a hormone coach, most people think that I am talking about the cycle, the menstrual cycle and estrogen, progesterone, insulin, cortisol. But really what I work with my clients on doing first, the 101 of my coaching is really about how to balance hunger and cravings and energy. Because these are the things that when we do this over time, we are able to get our metabolism in an efficient state. We're able to get our hormones in a state where we can maintain a low-calorie diet and see the changes that we're looking for aesthetically. And then through that process, what tends to happen is we notice once we are able to get our nutrition in line and our lifestyle in line, we start to notice maybe some other hormonal types of imbalances. And at that point, I typically refer my clients to an integrative physician so that they can get their blood work done and really start to identify if we have thyroid disorders or if there are challenges with PCOS or adrenal stress. So we can go super detailed on hormonal balance, but I think the most important piece to getting started on balancing your hormones is dialing in your nutrition so that you are able to balance your hour to hour and day to day hunger, cravings, and energy hormones. And that, my friend, is probably the biggest piece to maintaining stability rather than yo-yo dieting. So I want to give you 4 mindset tips to think about as you begin balancing your hormones. The first one is stop thinking about burning calories and start thinking about putting on muscle. So I would love for everybody that I work with to become women who train with weights and who are comfortable with training with weights. And while I totally understand that if you're somebody who has been sedentary for quite some time, the thought of training with weights is pretty intimidating, but that's why I work with my clients mostly on an at-home program. And so simple couple pairs of dumbbells is all we need, but to add resistance and to do some multi-joint hybrid moves, like you're squatting with dumbbells at your shoulders and you're going to press those dumbbells up as you come out of the squat. A squat to overhead press, or otherwise called a thruster, that's a really great metabolic move, especially when we do that rep over rep over rep and we get nice and breathless, we get our muscles burning. I really like to emphasize to my clients that your first mode to exercise to trying to lose fat is not going to be going out on runs every single day. Runs can be actually aerobic exercise can be really great for our our brain chemicals, really great for serotonin and dopamine, all those feel good endorphins. But it shouldn't be the only exercise that we're doing to try to lose fat. So I want you to stop thinking about burning calories through exercise, and I want you to think about lifting damn weights and putting on some lean muscle. Worry less about weight loss and more about fat loss. When you worry less about weight loss and more about fat loss, you are most interested in putting a lot of lean muscle on your frame. And so the more lean muscle you have on your frame, the more efficient your metabolism is, the more you're able to eat certain things and not gain weight, the more you're able to be in a more fat loss mode. And so your basal metabolic rate is how much your body burns, how much energy your body burns while at rest. And the more lean muscle mass you have on your body, the higher that rate is. So you want to build muscle and be okay with the fact that you are not going to get bulky, ladies. We want to really prioritize holding on to muscle in the process of weight loss, but also building muscle. I also want you to think about just doing more. And so most of the time when we're going on a plan, we're thinking about eating less in particular. When we're talking about our diet, we're thinking about taking out a lot of things. I want you to just focus on eating more, but you're going to eat more high quality food. So much of the diet culture we focus on is eating less and less and less, eating small portions. I want you to eat a ton of food, and I want you to eat more foods that fill you up for longer, maintain your muscle mass, and give you more balanced energy. Those are things like proteins, lean proteins, lots of fiber. They fill your gut and keep you satisfied for longer. And I'll talk about that in just a second when I give you the actual tools that I want you to take every day. But I want you to think about the fact that we want more, not less. We want more of the good stuff, not all of a sudden taking out all the bad stuff, right? Those tend to happen in tandem, but I want you to focus on the more. And then this was the most important piece for me. No decision is ever made in a vacuum. So when we're talking about our hour-to-hour hunger hormones, we can't have breakfast and ignore the fact that it has an influence on what we're going to eat, what we're going to pick at lunch, and how much we're going to have of it. If we're going to have a super high sugar breakfast, we are going to be craving more sugar at lunch. It is just a factor of insulin being sent out into the bloodstream to try and remove the blood sugar from the breakfast, more insulin that's around, especially when there's high levels of cortisol in your body, that stress hormone. We are in more of a fat storing mode, and we are also looking for, all of a sudden our sugar crashes and we are looking for more energy available in our bloodstream, and we're looking for sugar. We're looking for those highly palatable, highly satiating foods. So no decision that we make is ever in a vacuum. If we decide to go out and run for a couple hours, we're going to come home and we're going to be really hungry after, right? Our hunger hormones are going to go up. So the decisions that we make, if we make a decision to stay up super late, right? If we get little sleep, we are going to wake up and our hunger is going to be a little bit higher. So our ghrelin and our leptin signals are going to be telling the brain to go looking for food, and it's going to be harder for us to have that egg white omelet, right? And so sometimes we just have to make that tough decision, like, yes, I want a bagel, but I know the bagel might make me hungrier for more starch later in the day. So I'm still going to stick with my lean protein and high fiber breakfast with a little bit of fat to keep me satisfied. And I know I'm going into a lot right here, but no food, no decision is ever made in a vacuum. Everything that we do has a compensatory hormonal response. Because if you think about the fact that hormones are running through our blood all day long, every day, and then there are those neurotransmitters of the brain that are also a part of the hormonal balance that we have going on, those affect our mood, our focus, our motivation to make the really good choices that we're looking to make. And so all of the decisions that we make throughout the day are influencing the next decisions. So we are never able to just be like, oh, okay, I'm going to sneak this candy over here, and this is going to be in a vacuum over here, and there's going to be no compensatory response. This, by the way, was the biggest thing that I learned that really helped me. I put myself on the hook for noticing all of the things that happened in the day-to-day basis. So I'm going to talk about how you guys can do that in the next section. The last mindset thing I want you to think about is get hip with getting aware. Like, it can be really, I don't know, it could be triggering for some people to turn back to themselves, because we always want to look for external answers. We want to look for the perfect plan. We want to look for the perfect diet. We want to look for the perfect coach that's going to help us do it. But the only person that can really do it for you is you. I want you to get hip to being aware of yourself and turning back to yourself. And for moms and for busy women, sometimes this can feel triggering too, because you're like, literally, I have nothing left. I don't have any time to focus on me because I'm focusing on so many other people. But you deserve to focus on you and to become aware of how your lifestyle is affecting your hormone balance. And actually, it's work that we have to do. I would tell you that it's work that it's not just a luxury, it's something that you need to do, because if you really care about your health and your balance and your lifestyle, you've got to get aware of how your decisions impact your life and how you feel. Not everything that works for your friend is going to work for you. I know we like to play copycat. We like to do things that other people do. But when you're hip to being aware, you've got to be hip to being aware that you're going to be different and that you're going to have different triggers, mental and physical triggers, to eat more, to overeat. You're going to have different buffers, things that will help you feel satisfied but won't pull you off of your plan, like having a little bit of cheese on your salad. For your friend, maybe putting cheese on her salad is going to make her want all the cheese all day long. For you, maybe having a half a glass of wine at night is going to be something that makes you feel like you're not depriving yourself, and it helps you to stick to a plan for a longer period of time. For your friend, maybe that one half a glass is going to turn into 4 glasses, and then she's going to binge eat some snacks before she goes to bed, and she's going to ruin the progress that she made that day, right? We all have different buffers and triggers, so we have to be, when we're hip to getting aware, we're hip to getting aware of our differences too. And part of this is over time, and I promise it will happen over time, but you got to get good at trusting you and trusting your gut. And the more that you listen to how you're feeling and you track that alongside a food journal, I'm big on food journals. I'm big on being aware of what we're eating and when we're eating it, because if we're noticing things, if we're like, I don't feel well digestively, I don't feel like I don't have energy. If we can track things like our sleep and our water consumption and what we're eating and when we're eating and how our hormones are feeling, this is all that I do in my online programs. I help people to track and I help to connect the dots, because you literally can't be like, oh, this isn't working without the data. I'm kind of into the data. Like, we got to have data. And if you want to notice how to make yourself feel the best, you literally have to track for a little while so that you can know exactly how to make yourself feel your best, but also be getting results in the process. Okay, now let's move on to the meat of this. So now I want to talk about what you can do on a daily basis to help you to begin to balance your hormones. And you're probably going to be surprised with the first answer that I'm going to give you, but I want you to walk daily. So getting out and walking is an incredible way to balance your stress hormones. And those stress hormones, when they are in balance, help balance your hunger and your cravings. See how it all comes back to those mental decisions that you have to make around food all day long? If you're doing nothing to help yourself stay balanced with your hunger and your cravings, then you are going to be battling that decision fatigue all day long. And it's going to be like, I really want chips, but I don't know, but I know I shouldn't have chips. So I'm going to, and it's going to be like hunger triggers those cravings. And it is very hard to stay on a plan that keeps you hormonally balanced. So I want you to walk daily, going for daily walks. And this is not about calorie burn. This is about going for a leisure walk, like literally chill. And I know it's really hard as a mom going out with littles. It's hard to go on like a stress reducing walk, but it is still beneficial for your physiology to go out and to walk, and just, your kids are going to stop here and there and pick something up and do all these things. That's okay. Let that happen. Go out for a chill walk every single day. And I know this time of year, it gets a little bit easier to do that, especially if you're in the Northern Hemisphere and you are, finally experiencing some spring-like weather. But I really want you to get out for this walk. It helps to trigger your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your relaxation mode. That sympathetic nervous system is all about just being tightly wound up, not even breathing properly, like those shallow chest breathing, trying to get into that parasympathetic nervous system. So walk daily, and that is a phenomenal way to balance your hormones. So please don't overlook that. I said it on the first one because I wanted you to know that it was really important. Eat protein at every single meal. So in my coaching practice, I have a tool that I call the Power Filter. The Power Filter is PFW, protein, fiber, and fiber that comes from water, and also staying hydrated. So protein has to be every single time we sit down to eat. I need you to have protein. All too often, we make snacks all about getting something that's sweet, and it's a sugar rush, and it increases insulin, and it causes more fat storage. And so what we want to do is we want to have a lot of protein on board. So protein helps us keep our lean muscle mass. It helps us to stay satiated for a long period of time. So this makes a remarkable difference for my clients. Protein is the most satiating of all of the macronutrients due to its impact on the gut and hunger hormones that slow digestion and turn off hunger in the brain. So we really want to focus on suppressing hunger with protein. And then when we have fiber that comes from water, is just fiber that is not starch-based. And so it's essentially vegetables and low sugar fruits. And so if we're focusing on, like, I'll give you an example as to a snack that I might have that is that's easy on the go, but I grab some rotisserie chicken and some strawberries. And I get the little bit of sweet that I'm looking for with my snack, but I get all of those hunger satiating hormone benefits of protein, and I'm able to get a little bit of sweet. So I want you to eat protein at every single meal, even your snacks. In my coaching programs, I help clients to identify how many meals a day is best for them, and if snacks are really ideal for them or not, or they should just be having a bigger meal at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But for all intents and purposes here, let's just focus on eating protein at every single meal. This next one is really important too, and it's often overlooked, and you need to prioritize sleep. So if you want to keep your hormones in balance and you want to be able to control your hunger, your energy, and your cravings, you need to prioritize sleep. This is the best because sleep has the ability to reset our metabolism. I think sometimes just hearing this might give you a little bit more, it might give it a little bit more staying power. You might give yourself the opportunity to focus on sleep, to set up your sleep environment, to go to sleep earlier. Just knowing that it resets your metabolism should be really good for you. It also impacts your hunger hormones, your stress hormones, and muscle burning and fat burning hormones. Sleep is sort of necessary in maintaining the ability to be in a fat loss mode. Or not. What I really love, so Jade Teta is the one of the creators of Metabolic Effect, who I have learned a lot from. And he often talks about sleep as it's almost like giving your body's hormonal software the time to download and complete its functions. It's like a computer, which, I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, I never shut down my computer, and I probably should. But as the hours pass when you are asleep, all the fat-storing hormonal machinery is turned down. Leptin, cortisol, insulin, and adrenaline are lowered, and we are able to basically become more sensitive to those hormones so that when we need them to turn off our hunger and to help us stay more satiated throughout the day, we can hear them. I don't know if you've heard about this, but there is something called hormone resistance. And when you are resistant to hormones, they are no longer doing their job because they are in such high demand. Like the hormones are talking so much that the body actually, the metabolism stops listening. So you may have a ghrelin hormone or a leptin hormone that is trying to turn down your hunger, but your brain might not be getting the message that you don't need to be hungry because you have enough energy and fat on board. And so if we're not getting the sleep that we need to help sensitize us to hormones, we are actually going to suffer longer. Okay, this next one is really important, and this is a very, very big component to my metabolic reset program. This is where I help my clients really get an enormous success rate with being able to listen to their body, know how to dial in their hormones, and get the results that they're looking for. So you know how I talked about earlier my acronym called PLAN, which stood for psychology, longevity, awareness, and necessary results, this is where I help my clients plan with me, really get keyed in and get really, really, really on point. So we're going to start tracking our hunger and becoming aware of our cravings. It's very interesting to see that we typically eat at the same times every day, and sometimes when we're not even hungry. Or we skip meals all day long, and we have a lot of, remember how I said that no decisions that we ever make, even the decision to not eat, was ever in a vacuum? Sometimes we skip meals all day long, and we become super hungry at night, and we eat way more than we would have if we just stayed on top of our meals. So literally, I want you to go into my show notes. I want you to download the hunger tracker and just for 2 weeks, track your hunger. And it's going to be eye-opening, and you're going to notice that there are some patterns that start revealing themselves. You would be super surprised to see how in 2 weeks you get so much information about your physiology and about your relationship to food, food timing, food choices, and definitely how in tune you are with your hunger. Most of the time you'll realize, wow, I'm totally out of tune with it, and you get better and better as you go. But when you become a hormonal expert in yourself, you're always super aware of your hunger, and so you are able to know how to keep your hunger in balance so that you never get into a situation where you're making decisions that are really poor decisions for your goals because you're too hungry. You have tools. You know that, okay, I should have a mid-morning snack because I'm usually super hungry in the morning. Or you notice when you exercise a certain way that you get certain hunger patterns, or when you don't sleep that things happen, or when your stress goes up that your hunger you have compensatory hunger reactions in a certain way. This is probably one of the best ways to balance your hormones. Yes, there are a ton of hormones that are moving around your body all day, every day. It could get very confusing looking at every single hormone in your body. But the best way to begin is by checking in with your hunger. And I promise you that in doing that, you're going to get a whole lot of information to begin to balance out your hunger, energy, and your cravings, and to begin feeling better in the process of whatever goal you're working on. Okay, guys, so that is an overview on hormones. I hope I was able to shed some light on something that can feel kind of like this thing that seems unreachable. I know for me, when I used to hear about hormone balance, I'd be like, yeah, okay, cool. That sounds really great, but I have zero idea what you're talking about or how to even apply that to my life. So I hope this was super helpful for you. I would love to hear from you. So make sure that you log into the Confidence Club on Facebook and tell me what you thought of this episode. I put a lot of time in making sure to make this episode something that was super actionable for you. I'm going to, in the show notes for this episode, go to jessicaorr.com/podcast, scroll right on down to episode number 5 on hormones, and you can get a couple resources that I put together for you that is going to help you get your mind right and get you to start taking this daily action to balance your hormones. So make sure to go into the show notes and get those. Don't forget to join the Confidence Club. The link is going to be also in the show notes for this episode, but you can go on to facebook.com/BP Confidence Club and just click to ask to come into the group. And that's where we're going to talk after the episode about all of these podcast episodes on the Be Powerful podcast. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks for listening in. I will see you next time on the Be Powerful podcast.